Welcome to this episode of Toys Bags In. Today we're going to be looking at a Starcom Starwolf vehicle. This one I've had in my collection for a while, and it's got a lot of issues, and we're going to see if we can restore this vehicle. These were made by Coleco in 1986, and this was specifically made in Macao, which is in China. Now, the issues we have with this vehicle is, first of all, it's missing the wingtips. We've got foldable wingtips here, and I'm going to have to fabricate those. You can see here on the right side, the laser gun tip is missing. And these are really cool. There's a lot of switches on them, opens up the canopy. And there's a switch on the back here. And this is supposed to release the wings and the nose of the vehicle, of the Starwolf. But it's not working. And it doesn't seem like it's releasing the nose either. So we have to fix that too. So we're going to open this whole thing up and take a good look at it, see how it works. We also have one more switch. It's the landing gear that opens up. And we also have the magnet, which is not missing. It's actually there. And this is a great play feature these vehicles had. So stay tuned. So first of all, let's take a look at the scale of these vehicles. Here's a 9-volt battery, and here's a G.I. Joe 3 3/4 inch figure. It's about the same length as the figure. So these are really small. So here are all the tools and the materials we're going to need to do this restoration. Specifically, we're going to need some polystyrene. So I've got some styrene here. We're going to make some pieces. First of all, let's take this thing apart. There are 4 screws on the bottom. And you just got to pull those 4 screws out. So some of the things we're going to start working on with this vehicle is we've got to figure out how the mechanism works. So let's pull this apart carefully. I'm not really sure what to expect. And here we can see the inside. So let's take the cockpit out and check underneath that. You can see the switch for the canopy, how that works. There's a little lever there. And there's a little spring here that's connected to the nose. So somehow that gets released and then the nose comes back down. Here is the back part with the switch in there. And you can clearly see the switch is broken. There's a little tab there that's broken. And here is the mechanical mechanism here where that switch goes. I'm just trying to figure out how everything works. You can see a little tab there that must click up against the switch and holds the wings and the nose up. And when you hit the switch, it releases it. But we'll investigate a little bit more further here. So the nose, there's a little spring that sits on probably this piece here. This piece has a little spring to the right. I think that spring is to make it move back into position. So it must move side to side. Oh, yes. You can see here where the wing mechanism, when it moves up and down, it must switch this blue flat piece from the mechanism underneath. So let's pull the screws off of the mechanical mechanism here, and it's like a spring mechanism, and see if there's anything wrong with it on the inside. The screws seem to be the same, so I'm not worried about getting them mixed up. This might be where everything falls apart. For small vehicles and a small toy line, there's a lot going on inside this. There's so many switches and mechanisms, and these must have been very expensive to produce. Definitely a cool toy line to collect. Now, if we look inside here, you can see some cogs, and the wing mechanism goes along the cogs. And the spring mechanism must move, and when it moves the wings down, it releases the nose of the vehicle too. So that's all connected all at once. You can see the cog on the inside. I don't see anything broken. The spring mechanism seems to be working inside, so that's good. Maybe it's just the switch that is broken, and maybe the spring for the nose was out of alignment. So we'll investigate a little bit more, and if there's anything else we need to do other than the switch, we'll check that out. Otherwise, just probably putting it back together properly will fix the problem. So you can see the cog here that's inside the spring mechanism. That just fits down on top of all of the cogs and wing levers that cause the wings to fold back out. So everything is very difficult. This is very difficult to keep all together. I'm going to have a hard time probably keeping this together, but you can see when the wing moves, it's moving this blue plate here with the spring here on the right, and it moves it over, and that must release the spring for the nose. So that's nice. Probably the same way that there's a spring here for the cockpit, and it causes it to spring open. It's just working in the opposite direction on the nose, springing it down instead of up. So you can see the spring there. I'm going to put all this back together now that it's all apart, show you how it goes together step by step. And if you need to fix anything in here that's broken, even though maybe the parts that you might have in yours is broken and mine isn't, at least you'll know what you're in for. I'm going to put the cockpit and the top back on, and I'm going to see how this nose cone drops down. Make sure it's working before I put all the other pieces in. So it goes up like that, and then I'm going to use my screwdriver. I'm just going to, everything is out of this, and just hit the latch there, and you'll see how the nose falls down. So, and that does that quite quickly and with a lot of force, so that's kind of cool. So here we go. It's working. I just have to fix the switch now so that it releases it. So what the switch does is when you fold everything up, the switch latches, and then when you press the button, it unlatches the mechanism for the right wing and allows everything to unfold out, caused by the spring mechanism inside this box. I'm going to use these blue Connex rods. I used these in my Cops and Crooks cycle repair, and I used red ones and had to paint them blue, and I was having a hard time getting the right color. I should have just used these. I actually found them in a box of Lego that my kids had and didn't even realize I had them. So with the wings in place, this cog just fits with the small cogs going into the bottom of the vehicle, and they just fit in there with the wing levers on both top and bottom of them. You also have to make sure that this blue plate in the front, it's sitting flat and not over to the left too far when you put the cockpit in. Otherwise, it won't fit back together. This is something that I figured out a few times. This spring mechanism needs to be wound a little tiny bit before you put it on. Otherwise, the wings will not release all the way down. So I tighten that up, hold it with your pliers, and then put it into place, and the cogs will hold everything in place. Don't worry, you can't over tighten this. This thing will turn 4 or 5 times 360 degrees. So you just need to turn it like a full turn, and it'll be lots of pressure to pull the wings down. I'm not going to screw this in yet because I may have to take it apart again. But now let's fix the switch. This switch is very delicate. No wonder it broke. You can see that there's a little lever there that it goes up against. I talked about that earlier. So we're just going to take a piece of polystyrene and glue that to the original 2 pieces that make up the switch that broke. And hopefully that'll be strong enough to fix that. What you'll notice is also there's not a lot of room in this thing. And if this polystyrene is too thick, it's not going to spring back. So we need to make sure that this polystyrene is strong enough to hold those 2 pieces together, but also thin enough to hopefully hold it all together so it works over and over again. And I'm going to try to reinforce that with the thick stuff, and then as the glue dries and it works, probably I'm going to have to file it down a little bit, but I want to try to keep as much of the polystyrene as possible so that it makes it strong. So I'm not really sure how much I'm going to be able to leave in there and how much I'm going to have to file down, but we'll let this dry, and then I'll do some final fitting and see what I have to do. Meanwhile, while that's drying, let's get the 2 screws back onto the spring mechanism. And I think it's going to work, so I'm just going to hold everything in place. So you can see that little spring there. The cockpit has a little notch in it, and the spring goes into the cockpit notch. So that's probably what happened, is the spring was not in the notch in the proper spot. So here is my final switch fix. You can see the polystyrene in there. I had to sand and file quite a bit of it down, but I was able to keep a piece of substantial thickness near where the brake was. So let's hope all that goes together. And now we're just going to put the top back on here. Like I said, the blue plate, if it's not in there in the correct spot, the front will not latch and close up securely. So let's put the 4 screws back in and see if this thing works. Now let's turn our attention to the laser. I'm going to use this clear cocktail stick, or you see it at restaurants where they put sandwiches. That's like a toothpick or a food pick, I guess they call it. I got this at a restaurant one day and thought, hey, this could be used for a repair, and it's been sitting in a box. And so it's going to look great. I think it's going to be perfect size. So I just got to cut it. I made it my couple marks there. Luckily, I have a laser that's not broken, so I can use that to do my measurements. And that's pretty close. I'm going to do a little bit more sanding and stuff, and we'll do the usual drilling the holes with a pin vise. I'm going to use a paper clip today, so we'll do that. So a little bit of filing here. Make sure the ends are flat, and also make sure that they are not crooked to make it look nice. Or get a little pilot hole right in the center with my tack, and then we'll take my pin vise here and drill in our holes. So there's the paper clip in the tip. So let's put our pilot hole in the laser part and use our pin vise very carefully. And we're going to drill probably 2 or 3 millimeter hole. I wish these pin vises came with brad point bits. It would make it a heck of a lot easier to drill these holes center, especially when you make a pilot hole and then all of a sudden your drill bit starts to wander. I'm going to do some research and see if I can find some brad point bits that are really small like that. I think it would make these jobs a lot handier. So next I have some of these really cheap paint pens, and they have come in quite handy lately. I find that the paint is not an acrylic. I don't know what kind of paint it is. It's probably an oil-based paint, but it just looks good, and it's usually, the color of them is usually really close to the color that I need. So I've got that tip on there. It's all painted and glued in, and it looks really good. Another good thing about this example of the Starwolf is that the stickers on this is fantastic, and I'm not going to really have to do anything with the stickers. I'm pretty sure they're all there. Next, we're going to make the wing tips. And I'm going to be using 2mm styrene sheets. And I'm going to make 3 pieces that are going to sandwich together to make each wingtip. Let me explain that to you here soon, but I'm just going to make a bunch of different cuts here so that I have a bunch of pieces, a bunch of sheets that I can cut my pieces out. And I've also carefully printed out some templates. These are just pictures of the wingtips from eBay, and I made quite a few of them. I made a picture of the front and the back of the tip, and also we're going to have a piece of styrene in between the front and the back section, because what I mean by front is the top, I guess, and the bottom. We're going to sandwich 3 pieces of styrene together. And how I know these templates are correct is that I know that from tip to tip on the edge that secures to the wing of the vehicle is 31mm or 13/16. So I just took my ruler there and measured that, and they are 21mm. I'm just going to cut these out with my X-Acto knife, and we'll secure them onto the pieces of styrene. So I got some double-sided tape here. We're going to use this double-sided tape to secure the templates to the styrene. That'll give us at least a good outline how we need to cut the styrene to make our shapes. I'm going to take 3 pieces of styrene and I'm going to sandwich them together, and then you'll see why, because I have to make the latches that connects to the wings. All right, so there's the first wingtip. I didn't really go into detail verbally what to do, but I'm going to make the second wingtip using the shape of this first one, because this first one turned out really good. So, and I'll show you into more detail kind of how I did it. So here's my polystyrene here. I'm going to make 3 shapes a little larger than my wingtip that I've made here. And then the third shape will be a little less, because I don't have to have the latches in the middle layer of the wing. So that way I don't have to cut so much down. But mostly I'm just pretty much going to try to cut this to the shape of my wing that I just made. It'll be a little larger, and you'll see how I did it. This time I don't have to use the templates because I have the wing as my template now. So, but we have to remember that this is a mirror image of the first wing. So you have to make sure that the connections, the top layer and the bottom layer, which have different connections to the wing, are opposite. So we have to make sure we don't make the wing exactly the same. It has to be kind of a mirror image of the original. A very important tool that we need to use is a round file. This is going to make a round profile in between the two pieces that are sandwiching the middle polystyrene. And that's important because this needs to clip in to the round part of the wing. You can see above my hand there, and it's round. So that's all got to fit in there really good. And the only way to hold that into place really well is to have a nice tight fit, but also it needs to clip in there. So there they are. There's some pieces there on the that I've already cut. They need to be attached to each side of the wing as just a little bit of a profile detail. And here's our finished product. It looks great. I have an aerator figure in here. It's about the same scale as the figures for Starcom. We've got the laser fixed. We've got the wing tips fixed. And let's check out the action that we fixed on the inside. The switch unlatches the wings and then folds the nose down. That's awesome. And of course the landing gear on the bottom still work, and I'm happy with that. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of this repair. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell for more videos coming up. Thanks for sticking around and getting this far. See you later.